Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've got your cups of chai, and those of you who are having a late lunch, I hope you have got your lunch with yourselves as well. Uh, I have this opportunity to take you through a fantastic panel and a very intriguing discussion that has been going on since many years. How do we take Indian content to a global stage in the digital age? So get going. I'm going to raise my cup of tea and let's get going. I would start without any delay and call our first panelist on board. And let me not mess it up because then that's just not done, right? So I have this great honor in calling Miss Dhanpreet Kaur, MD, National Film Development Corporation, Ministry of I&B and Government of India. Dhanpreet ma'am, welcome. Uh,
Yes,
Thank you.
good afternoon, everyone. I am Dhanpreet Kaur. I am Managing Director, NFDC, and also Director of Films in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting.
All right. It will also be nice if the panelists, when they join us, tell us one favorite piece of Indian content they have. All right. So that sort of brings us back to where we are going. So Dhanpreet ma'am, what's your favorite Indian content right now?
NFDC has a whole lot of Indian content which is desired and looked forward by all the viewers, and they want to have a look at that.
Okay, I
Every
think I
one
put
of
you
that
in the
is close
corner
to my
and
heart.
now you're like wondering what is the most politically correct answer to give. So I'll come back to you on that, but you think of an answer. I'm going to bring on our next esteemed panelist, Miss Manisha Verma, MD, Maharashtra Film Stage and Cultural Development, and she is also the force behind Film City in Mumbai. Manisha ma'am, welcome.
Thank you, Viraf. Thank you, all of you, for having me here along with you all.
Great. Do you have favorite Indian content to nominate? What's your personal favorite? It
No,
can
right
be any
now,
movie, any show, anything.
right now, I would just like to pitch for our two Marathi films that have been selected for screening in this festival, Me Vasant Rao
Oh no, man.
and,
No.
and
We are now
Kadugod.
plugging now.
So
We are
those are the
plugging.
ones which we are screening from Maharashtra. So it will be my favorite for the moment.
Oh my God, we're starting off on such a polite note. Anyway, I'm going to go to the next gorgeous panelist I have, and also somebody who's considered with somebody who's got a great mind for the business. I'm going to call upon Kranti Gada. Kranti Gada, welcome to the session. Kranti Gada is also COO Shimaru Entertainment, which has one of the biggest content libraries of our country. Kranti, welcome.
Hi everyone, and a big thank you for Fiki for having me here. And Viraf, I am going to give a politically incorrect answer because it's a film which is not from our library, but I can say it's a defining moment, at least for my generation, and it's Three
Thank you.
Idiots.
Great, that's my favorite too. Well,
I think it sets the right tone in terms of entertainment, humor, inspiration, a lot of things, and I think I can watch it from any point, like if it's going on television, and just watch it, continue watching it. So
all right. Also, what is poetic? There are only three more panelists that I'm revealing to call upon, but they are three fantastic achievers in their various respective fields. The first one, I'm going to call upon Mr. Vishnu Mota, co-founder Hoi Choi and executive director SPF. And we all know Hoi Choi is one of those strongest Bengali content platforms. Vishnu?
Thanks, Viraf, and great to be on the panel with some friends and some people I would love to know in the future. Thanks to have Fiki to have me here. As far as the film is concerned, I think for me it has to be another Amir Khan film, coincidentally, which is Lagan, which I think in a lot of ways was commercial and put India on a global map in a lot of ways. I feel India's entry to the Oscars, if I'm not mistaken, also in that year. I think it touched a lot of the right notes, I guess.
फिकी आपसे जरूर दुगना लगान लेगा इस सेशन के बाद.
Done.
Let's go on to our next panelist. I am going to call Mr. Shibashish Sarkar, Group CEO, Reliance Entertainment. And Shibashish ji, your favorite film or a piece of Indian content?
Hi Viraf, thanks Vicky, and thanks for the organization to allow us to come on this board and to share our thought process. I don't think, Viraf, I'll be able to give you one particular story or one particular content, not to be politically or not politically correct, because there are so many. From our childhood, when we have grown up, we have seen from Pather Pachali of the world to even something I must have seen 2 days back on a platform. So I think it will be unfair to say one favorite content. So I think there are so many stories this country has generated and the storytellers have told. There are many of them which has created a mark in our mind, at least in my mind.
Fine, Shibashish. I will live with that disappointment, and I will come to who seems to be perhaps, I suspect he is the youngest we have on the panel. But keeping age apart, he's a national award winning filmmaker. He's a friend as well. I'm very proud to have him as a friend, and he's one of the most restless and passionate storytellers I've come across. Mr. Nikhil Musale, who's the director of Wrong Side Raju, which won the National Award for Best Gujarati Film. And he's also made Made in China. He's also responsible for Gujarati phenomena like Be Yaar and Kevi Rite Jaish. And I also believe in the Gujarati matrimonial market, he's one of the eligible bachelors. So, Nikhil, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Viraf. So these great introductions only happen over panels, when I've realized in real life, the life is far more struggling, especially when we are trying to get in touch with Kranti and Shibashish and for our film pitches. But this definitely seems, I'm honored to be part of this. I'm honored to be part of such a great panel. Thank you, Vicky and Viraf. And one content, if you asked, I'll pick up the word recent also, you said, would also be, could be Delhi Crime. It's that one web series which is very colloquial, and I found it had the right notes which touch across India and the global platforms also. So yeah, it has.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thanks. So now that we all have our panelists on board, in a good 11 minutes, we've introduced all the panelists. I'm doing so well as a moderator so far. So let me come quickly to Dhanpreet, ma'am. And ma'am, I'm going to come back to you. And I'm going to ask your point of view. Firstly, just to set the context, what Indian content going global really means.
Yes, Viraf. I think this is about the kind of films we are sending to the outside world, the kind of stories we are telling to the festivals and to the filmmakers of the world and to the audience who want to listen to, who want to look up to Indian content. And I think it has grown over the years well beyond what it was specifically a few, like the Hindi movie industry, Bollywood specific, or the regional cinema. Now it is getting on to our tier 2 and tier 3 towns. People are eager to listen to their stories. And that is the content which is coming up very well. As MD of NFDC also, this is the change in our orientation which we are trying to bring as well. Like as local content, as good content, we can have our hands on. I think this is what is expected, and this is what is going from India to the outside world as well. As far as digital platform is concerned, I think it's a recent history of 3-4 years only that we have so many digital platforms coming up. This is in fact giving way to, it's increasing creativity in a big way. The new content is being made and it's going on like too well. And I see a great future for our industry. I see a great future for our stories. And I feel that this digital platform will take our content even globally. And also it will help us to reach to our own person who would take that 2 rupee ticket and go to the movie, which maybe had stopped going when the multiplexes came in. So I feel our reach, our content is going to enrich with the digital platforms coming. Thank you, Virat.
I realize I would sound better with the mic not muted. That's a great place to start from, Dhanpreet ma'am. Fairly optimistic, and I like that. I like that. I'm going to go to Manisha ma'am, and I'm going to ask Manisha ji, what is Indian content going global mean to you in the digital age? What does it mean to you?
So basically, I mean, as Dhanpreet has said, of course, films and entertainment industry is the vehicle for our showcasing our soft power. I mean, it becomes the instrument for, showcasing our culture, our values, and right from the regional to the, and India being such a diverse country, I think we have enormous content to give, both in terms of diversity, in terms of, quality, so, and creativity, I would say. So I think that is one aspect I would like to emphasize, that with the growth of, it is a 23.3 billion USD dollar industry. And now, even despite the pandemic, when we see at the growth in the subsectors of OTT and animation, it has grown to the extent of 24% in OTT platforms and 45% nearly in animation. So here you see a phenomenal growth, and even in terms of just not the revenue, but also in terms of employment. If you see, this is one industry that has outpaced, and it has a whole range. So I would like to first put the potential of this sector in perspective. I mean, for the country and for the, globally, that here you have a sector which can give employment right from high-tech people to semi-skilled to, a range of people. For them, it is open for employment. It is for the country's, economy, even in a scenario of general slowdown. Here is a sector which are seeing phenomenal growth. There is also an appetite. With the pandemic, even the theaters were closed. So there are studies to show that the demand for, the digital content increased threefold. So here you have a huge potential, and therefore this is the time. Also, I would like to kind of link it that who are our main consumers. We also have a very sizable population of NRIs across the country, so across the globe, and those are the people also who are very, very hungry for connecting through our films and our serials. And apart from that, I think we have right now the right technology expertise, the right creativity, the right kind of edge, even to appeal to the, to a global audience, besides those who have, an India Connect, say by birth, or, NRIs. So I would say that it's an exciting times to be for the, to be in for the sector and for this industry. That is what my take would be.
Okay, and Manisha ma'am is following it up with a very optimistic take.
I would also like to say that Mumbai, where I'm sitting right now and talking to you, is also a part of the UNESCO network of creative cities for films. So that has also been, the laurel that has come to Mumbai. So I would like to add there that many countries and film commissions are now wanting to connect with us because of this distinction that Mumbai has.
Thank God I'm in Mumbai. Kranti, Dhanpreet ma'am and Manisha ma'am are like painting a very rosy picture about this Indian content going global. Do you align with it? What are your thoughts on it, Kranti?
Okay, so for me to say, when I say Indian content going global, I would say that it actually necessarily means non-diaspora, because I would say the Indian diaspora is an extension of India, and they will anyways have roots and attachments. So where have we reached in the non-diaspora connect? I would say it's very, very nascent compared to a lot of our other competitors. Hollywood, of course, was always established, but I feel countries like Korea have come from the behind and, you know, taken us over in terms of popularity, appeal, Turkish content by leaps and bounds. I would say, you know, for me, when I say, you know, it's not about one series or one content or one film or, you know, 5 films getting accepted in theatrical in China. It's about sustained, consistent demand and acceptance as a genre of content for global audiences. The way they accept, you know, say Hollywood. So Hollywood is America, and the rest of the world and other, I would say, English speaking and other markets have accepted that as many of them have accepted that even as their primary source of entertainment. How does Bollywood compete with that? You know, it's not about, for me, it's not about, you know, few pieces of content which are made in international taste. How can they actually accept the mainstream of content generation that is happening in India? How do we make that into a genre that they accept? And I think a lot of work, you know, in the creative community coming together, the distribution platforms putting in some consolidated effort, and government backing some investments. And of course, the stars, you know, actually, when a star visits a country often, you know, or many stars visit countries often, they actually catalyze creating local demand over there. So I'll give you an example. You know, it used to be consistently, like Shah Rukh Khan, for example, just to give you an example, they made a lot of effort to build his market, say in a Malaysia or a Germany, and you'll find a lot of locals consuming his content in those markets. And, you know, we've actually seen a decline in Indian content consumption, or rather Bollywood consumption, with, you know, when there was, you know, slowdown in films coming in from Shah Rukh. So can the newer crop of artists together with the creative community platforms make an effort in some markets where we see cultural fits? So, you know, who are culturally similar to us versus Hollywood. So maybe it's too big a vision, but when I say if India was to truly connect with global audiences, I feel we have to think big. So yeah, those are my 2 bits, and I'll rest it here.
Okay. Kranti, I hear you. Thanks for bringing in that perspective that we need stars who cross boundaries. And now I'm going to go to get a very business side perspective, an economic perspective of the trade. I'm going to come to Shivashish, to you first. I think we are naturally segueing into, we spoke about the potential. We know that there is a sunshine happening for the appetite of content going around in the world on the OTT space, etc. Kranti is bringing up a very interesting point that maybe we're not as sharp as Korea and Turkey. Maybe we have work to do. Where is the work that we need to do? Your take on that.
Right. So I think there's, interesting views which are coming, and that, as we are currently saying, that is all navigating in a journey. I'll take the discussion. Probably I'll start the discussion from few years back situation. When you talk content, content necessarily or not necessarily means only theatrical, right? If you're looking at the history of this country, probably 110, 120 years of journey of Indian theatrical films. Then we are looking at 90s, so broadly 30 odd years of journey of television content, and probably last 4 to 5 years of journey of so-called content for the streaming platform, right? When you talk of the film per se, film as a segment per se, and we as a company, or in my own experience of last 25 odd years, I have seen that films taking to a global audience, there's a very valid point which Kranti has raised, is the language, right? So even the so-called big blockbuster films of an Indian language, and I'm not necessarily restricting to Hindi, you can push to 80, 90, 95 odd countries. It doesn't cross that. It crosses that border. And I'm talking of these are the commercial films. What is the shelf life? 2 weeks. At best situation, it will be 2 weeks on the theaters, and then it will be removed. Okay. If we look at the films which are on the festival circuit, I mean, that journey has happened quite maybe 50, 60 years, 70 years back. It has happened. It has happened during Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen, Adur Gopal Krishnan, Shyam Benegal, Govind Nihalani. Every decade, we have fabulous filmmakers who have made films. Those films have gone to Cannes, Berlins of the world. It has gone to the world cinema. It has got appreciated. But at the same point of time, there is a restricted number of consumers who have gone and tasted and sampled those content, right? It has given us a lot of pride, but the reach has not probably gone to the mainstream. So what is happening, one big barrier for a film situation is that the language is a big barrier, as much as we like or not like. And to take the comparison of Hollywood versus India, that when the language is English and if it is going to a multiple countries, there probably a situation where people have taken that understanding that an English language with an Indian language is always will be different. And also the point what Kanti said, very interesting. I mean, if you look at even the star as a situation, there are stars who has pockets of popularity. Let's look at from Raj Kapoor's time to Russia, Mithun Chakraborty's time in Russia. You look at Rajni Sir's time in Japan. If you look at Shah Rukh for some of the pockets, so there are certain stars who are very popular in some pockets, and they've worked on those pockets to make it. Or as recent as Amir, what he has done for the China. The only market off late, and I'm still talking of the theatrical part, off late probably last 7-8 years have become theatrical market, which has been growing and which has been growing like there is agnostic to the language. If it is inspiring or if it is aspiring, if it is connected to them, Chinese audience have came, bought a box office ticket and seen the film. So that's a one phenomena, but that phenomena is very localized phenomena. But to what happened, so this is a situation in the film even today. Even we will see some part of the film and every language has a certain pockets of growth. Like if you look at Tamil and Telugu, there are pockets of growth in probably in US market, probably in Malaysia, probably in Middle East. Hindi goes to, as I was telling you, 80-90 odd countries it goes in the market. If you now coming back to the television situation, television 35 odd years, when the general entertainment GEC channels have started launching their platforms across the globe, definitely it has catered to a more level of audience, but I will tend to agree with Kranti and Munshi Madam that probably that has gone to the Indian diaspora. I don't know how much it has gone to the audience, to the so-called in our language, the Gora audience, right? Or non-Indian audience. Some kind of a revolution, what is happening in the last 4 to 5 years is basically in the streaming platform. And it is not necessarily only for India, it is happening across the globe. If I ask in this panel, among all of us, we see a lot of content, and if I ask them that which are the most popular non-Indian contents we like, probably the top names will come like, okay, Money Heist, Fauda, Narcos, etc. of the world, right? And you'll find none of them are English content, right? So you are liking a South Korean content or a Mexican content. So somewhere we started as an audience, we started getting ingested in the situation that, okay, I'm happy to see a great story in a television or on a laptop at my home environment, but I'm happy to see it on a subtitle. Language is now is a barrier. And now the reverse situation, and I think every forum, whenever we go and speak, at least in a little bit of global forum, we always teach India that a country of 1.3 billion population, the country of 50% more population, 30 years of age, and country of 9 cents a GB as a data cost, right? And so you come to my country. But what is happening in last 4 to 5 years in the situation is that Indian storyteller stories are going globally as clearly as possible. Like if I am consuming a foreign language content by looking at a subtitle, the same thing is happening for Indian language content. And that's probably the reason, if you're looking at the probably 30-35 platforms already in the country, and probably the next 5 odd platforms, like you look at HBO Max, Apple, they're all waiting for the starting the Indian content in this market. The Indian storytellers are going to globally at probably 1/10 of the global cost. And they are getting audience. So, I mean, I'll give you one live example, which is in my case, the situation. We did the Sacred Games with the first Netflix series in India, right? That was, I think, 2017, 2018 we released. And it's difficult to get data, as all of us know that generally platforms don't share their data and etc. of the world. But as a producer, the information what we got from the platform is that 2/3 of Sacred Games season 1 came from outside India, right? Now, it is difficult for me to believe that those 2/3 consumers are all Indian. So if a story is interesting, whether it is Sacred Games or Delhi Crime or Mirzapur or so many other, I mean, last 3 years, 4 years, we have been, our scam or so many stories we are celebrating. If a story is interesting, it caters to the audience. People are not looking at that. People are not looking at that language. People are consuming stories on the subtitles. So that's the positive situation we find, and that's exactly what's happening in the country. We are finding so many writers, so many directors across territories, across regions. They are coming and celebrating the growth of the content, not only in India but also globally. I mean, so I will be quite positive in the situation, and I'm hoping that probably next 3 to 4 years, this platform will completely democratize a situation where Indian content will be appreciated, and it's getting already appreciated and will be picked up in the global audiences.
Okay, thank you, Subhashish. Now, the way it's showing on my Zoom screen is I have I have Vishnu on my left and I have Nikhil on my right. But I have the next question for both of you, and both of you take care. Subhashish has pointed out that there is a language challenge, but we can overcome that. And he's pointed out something very beautiful, that the most appealing non-Indian content in the streaming era, we are likely to rattle out names like Money Heist and Fauda, which are not necessarily English. Nikhil, I want to come to you. And then I want to ask the same question to Vishnu, because you are, at the forefront of taking Bengali content, which is a very regional language across the world. What's it going to take to have an Indian equivalent of Game of Thrones or Money Heist or Fauda? I want to ask you, Nikhil, you're the pure storyteller, creative guy who asks for the big budgets and have these dreams. Come on, what's your dream and how do you wish to fulfill it?
So Viraf, just to answer the first part of it, I think what OTT platforms and streaming platforms has done is, for the longest years, we were demarketing films. I mean, we used to go to film festivals and then we used to demarcate that there is a commercial Hindi films and there are film festival films. And there was clear demarcation, kind of, a very caste system kind of a thing. And these film festival films were reaching to the global, but the commercial ones weren't. So what the platforms has done is, it had blurred the line of all these demarcation of films, of be it a regional film or film festival film or commercial film. Forget the global audience. We, in this pandemic times, in last 4 or 5 years, with the uprise of OTT platforms, we have started watching more regional cinema internally. I mean, I wouldn't watch a Tamil or a Kannada film as accessible as now. So what this OTT platforms is doing is the opportunity of not the demarcation of films. I mean, I was so happy to see a film like Parasite winning 4 Oscars. Imagine a Korean film going down, reaching out to the entire worldwide audience. And that is so optimistic for a filmmaker like us who has come from regional backgrounds, where we are not into the pressure of probably making a certain kind of cinema. I mean, I could I could think of making something like a Family Saga or a Game of Thrones in a Gujarati language, and I don't have to worry about the budget if it's on paper, which is the project is compelling enough. So I think what these platforms are doing is, it doesn't judge you just based on the language, from the space, the strata, or the stars. It's giving very equal opportunity of very competent storytelling. And at the end of the day, it's going to be very merit-based. However, there are great opportunities. The great content is definitely going up, and the mediocre is going to fizzle out very, very soon. So these are very exciting times, especially for makers like us who are trying to at least create some disruptive content. So that's my take on it.
Thanks, Nikhil. That sounds ambitious. Vishnu, I'm going to reiterate the question to you. So, what's it going to take to get people to say, use Indian content titles like Patal Lok or say Delhi Crime in the same breath as Fauda or Game of Thrones or Money Heist? What's it going to take, Vishnu?
So, I mean, Firstly, I think it'll take unfortunately, I think at this stage it'll take someone who operates locally outside India. I mean, an OTT platform that doesn't exist in India, because they will have the international base of people from multiple languages, people from multiple countries, and have that depth of distribution possible. I mean,
but we do have that right now. We have
that.
a Netflix and
I'm
Prime
saying,
and
absolutely, and
Disney.
there are only so many of them. I'm saying it probably, if that show is produced by any of the Indian grown OTTs at this stage, I don't think they will immediately be able to reach out to that kind of audience from a distribution. It's a classic theatrical kind of problem, because one show will not probably create that kind of buzz. The second thing I will take is a huge amount of budget also. I mean, if you talk in those veins, and even if you talk about Sacred Games and some of the other shows, Game of Thrones is an order of magnitude bigger than that's an HBO original, which was based on a book which is very widely read, and which had ambition, which even probably HBO was betting the company on it when they actually decided to make Game of Thrones at that time. So I think that's the kind of intent, and I don't think it is for lack of stories that would not happen. India has probably a Mahabharata or a Ramayana and others stories which I think can be offshoot to and will have a universal appeal from every thread of human emotion that would be covered in those stories, especially for Mahabharata for that matter. So I don't think it is for want of stories or want for ideas or want for makers. I think I don't see it not happening. I just think it's a matter of time. Imagine we're just sort of 3-4 years into this pay as a pay on the internet or pay TV as a phenomenon, versus US, which always had premium television, premium episodic in the form of HBOs, etc., and AMCs of the world. We're just 3-4 years into this, as a content creator I'm talking about, where we're making premium television content made at huge budgets, made for a universal audience. Just 3-4 years into this. Television was never rooted towards a global audience in the first place, and theatrical was a limited 2.5 hour kind of story length, I guess. So yeah, I mean, when you talk about Game of Thrones, etc., I think we're in the early stages of making that kind of content, which I would call as premium television or television plus, somewhere in between film and television. I think it's a matter of time versus it's a matter of when versus if, I guess.
Okay. So Vishnu has put it up as a matter of time. Now, in that time, Kranti, I'm going to come back to you, and maybe Manisha ma'am could also pitch into this part of this conversation. In this meantime, that Vishnu says it's inevitable, what's the work that needs to go in from an industry perspective? And then I will also come to you, ma'am, Manisha ma'am, as to you, because you represent the regulator, you look after the film city, you are almost a sort of a representative of the state here. So first, I want an industry perspective from Kranti. What's the work that needs to go in from the industry during this time to make that phenomena happen?
See, Viraf, just building on what Vishnu said, I completely agree with Shibashish's point that the digital media has opened up content which can travel and a platform for content to travel. But unfortunately, today in India, we only have Netflix and Amazon who have the capability, and now, of course, with Disney Hotstar on the Disney side, have the capability of getting the content to travel. But still, none of our native Indian businesses have that capacity. Secondly, I would say is that it's not about 1 or 2 or 3 titles traveling. It's about a consistent demand, I feel, that we need to create, because people need to recognize the genre and accept us even, for what we are, versus trying to, kind of be in that whole neutral zone or mass, whatever, global content creation format. I feel for that, the industry really, I feel we need to, along with, I feel, government support, try to, I feel, have to be a lot of groundwork to be done in a lot of the countries to build awareness, to build connect with our stars and our content, to be able to get consistent demand for scale. Matlab, neto, how many shows will travel? Maybe a year, 10 shows will travel. But how do we give a platform to, we are making 1,000 movies and maybe, from next year onwards, maybe 500 web series in a year. So how do we give a, larger platform to many creators. I think that's somewhere that I think the industry, the creative community, and the government, all three have to come together because we have that much to offer to the world. And literally from some mass content, I mean, some content like Sacred Games, which can travel to the Western world, we have stuff that can travel to the Eastern world. So Shivashi spoke about television. So Indian television shows are very popular in local language dubbing in Malaysia, Indonesia, Africa. They already have a base, like, certain stars, television stars, when they, travel to Indonesia, they get mobbed because people recognize them. So how do you build on some of these? I think, I feel we will have to come together as an industry and make an effort to have, so otherwise one-off stuff will travel, Netflix and Amazon will come and do their stuff and make people, but what has India done then? The Indian businesses.
Kranti,
I'm not talking about the creators.
I need to say, that's the intention. I mean, we're not putting pressure on India to create another phenomena like a platform phenomena like Netflix. I think the first step that we are talking about is how do we get our existing Indian content or potential content that is in the pipeline reach the global level.
Yes.
Whether it's through Netflix, whether it's through Amazon, whether it's through HBO Max or Apple or whoever the existing pipelines are. When a new pipeline will come in, I'm sure it will come in. And if that is Indian, God bless that Indian house. But right now, these pipelines are there. Nikhil, we have a pipeline right now, say within a Netflix or a Prime that reaches over 100 or 200 countries. What's stopping us from making a money heist? Is it lack of funds? Like Vishnu says, maybe we don't have those budgets. Is it lack of vision? What is it? Or what can we do to get there? How would you want to give this a stab? You will sound better if you unmute.
So Viraf, I'll give you a very small experience. I was fortunate enough to be part of India's entry to Oscars 3 years back. And it's again a process of 10 days and you're watching films. And we were discussing internally also and debating, and always I also had a notion that India is someone who creates and produces so many films a year. I mean, we had to choose that one entry. Of course, that entry is also, it's been overly debated and there's a lot of pressure of sending the right entry. But to be honest, as a maker, we were really struggling to get that film right. I mean, it's not that we didn't have great films that year. We had very good films that year. But were those films had the right ticks or to get the attraction of a global audience? I think that was more of a valid question, and hence that's where the catch-22 comes there, I feel. I think definitely stories which are very unique, that part of a country which as a global audience, they are very curious to know about. Like a film like Newton also works because people globally would be very curious to know how does the India's democratic voting system works. And so that's something unique. So again, something which is very colloquial, which is very unique, which is made with a lot of finesse. It has a great high production value and which appeals to the universal audience. There are a lot of ticks. And when we get all the ticks right, that's where the show gets popular. So I think it's not just one factor or two factors. There are many factors here. And that's probably the reason, as Kranti said, that we are making great shows, but probably only one or two are reaching out to the global audience every year. Maybe we would want more number of films and shows to be reached out to all those countries where we already have presence. So yeah, that's what I holistically feel.
Right. So he spoke about ticks, Manisha ma'am. How would you, being somewhere part of, the forces that you are part of, how would you help make those ticks happen in the interest of Indian content going global?
Viraf, my mandate in the current job is not really distribution or marketing. That is taken care by more, of course, if there are inputs from the industry, then we would be very keen to see how that incentives in the policy can happen in the policy space. my effort has been in the last 1 year that I have been heading the Film City Corporation has been to, establish a close connect with the industry to look at the best global policies which can incentivize this sector. And even the other states, what has happened there, nearly 8 states in India have come up with state policies. And for Maharashtra, then we had a webinar despite the pandemic. We had 50 experts from the industry, the producers guild, the other professional networks and individuals that we got in touch with, and we had a structured webinar. Now then we identified that if you have to create a world-class content, you need infrastructure and one-stop solution. So we were looking at developing such infrastructure within the premises of Film City Goregaon. And for that, we've already floated an expression of interest. We have been having very, keen participation, one-on-one meetings. Recently, only last week, we had meetings with all the Netflix, Amazon, Disney. Many production houses are also showing interest. So this is one platform I would like to share, that right now we've floated an expression of interest in which we would want big world-class shooting floors, the post-production, VFX and other facilities to be there. Wherein once you step in the Film City, then at least you are able to get all the services. Mumbai being a house, it houses the largest professional, technical manpower, actors, producers are all housed here. So we would like to, develop the infrastructure that is one. The second thing, in sector. I think more or less this is a sector where people have not got the formal kind of education. It is more by apprenticeship and you learn on the job. But somewhere there has to be benchmarking of, prior learning that you have acquired on the job, and in future, if you have to compete with the best in the world, that you need to create centers of excellence. There are around 28 crafts that are associated with this sector. And, you need to have very, very specialized mentors and resource persons, and, whether filmmaking institutes or today, to name you, FTII, or you have a Whistling Woods in our campus, but you need to have many more. This needs to be mainstreamed, both in terms of skilling as well as with the technical education. So that is another area that we are looking at it in the policy. And the third thing is even increased public engagement. I mean, you actually barely have film appreciation courses or public screening of good quality films, or developing that kind of, the taste and amongst the college students, amongst the thing. We've recently taken over with trying to do with NFDC, we are doing a script writing mentoring course for 3 months. We've just called for applicants for that. So there are these multiple things that we are doing. And of course, the government also wants to give certain incentives, which we call that this is an industry, but actually the industry, the incentives which are available for industry are not there. So I think these are I would say that on the backside, it is not so much the marketing. First, a sustained supply of a content of quality, and it is sustained and it is marketed well. And I think, as rightly pointed out by my other co-panelists, that this will require a very, collective and, synergy coming together of the industry and the creative world people and the government. Government does not have the domain knowledge at all about this sector, and we would be wrong if we don't take the, learn from the industry and what their thing is. And I've been really soliciting their inputs. And in fact, sometimes I tell them that you're too lost in your own work and you're not really coming forward when we are soliciting so much of engagement. So
I love how you slipped in the complaint to the industry. I'm sure Kranti and Vishnu and Sivashish and Nikhil are taking note at this very beautiful bearing of a complaint to the industry in this conversation. I'm going to take that at cue. And very quickly going to segue. We have another 9-10 minutes to go. I would like to round this up, we have one of our listeners throwing in a question, and anybody within the panelists, do I think Subhashish and Vishnu are very well poised, and perhaps even Kranti are well poised to answer this question. The question is from Ishan Mahapatra. And the question is, a lot of discussion has been centered around high quality commercial content, but how can we support the more of the formal art cinema content that challenges audiences without the easy wrap-ups and without speaking down to them? Subhashish, you want to give it a go, or Vishnu? Which one of you would like to give it a go?
I can share my thought process. I think as much as one needs to celebrate and support commercial content, the basic philosophy says that one has to support and has to probably handle it and has to take it forward, even the contents which are probably not so much commercial in nature, but probably from a high quality, high content point of view. See, there are two ways, there are two parameters of measuring content. One, of course, and we have seen from hundreds of years, that you either look at awards and acclaims of the world, and there are certain contents which may not be getting awards and acclaims of the world, but public or a normal consumer, I'm more coming from a theatrical point of view, they come and celebrate that. Now, when film, and I'm talking specifically for film, I'll come to the streaming content later on, but the same thing works there also. It is not there are two different set of audience. Our audience who is sitting at home, he's willing to spend the money for a different purpose, and when he goes to a cinema hall, his mindset changes, right? But when you take an audience all the way to the cinema hall, he has to make a lot of effort. He goes to the cinema hall, he buys a ticket, and he takes a commitment. Next 3 hours, I'll be in the hall, and that's why he's a committed guy. So it needs a lot of effort from that storyteller, from marketer, that the way it is promoted, and why somebody will take all that effort and go and see a content. In that parameter, audience is the king. I'm not saying content is the king. You have to satisfy audience. If audience is satisfied even with a content which does not pass the benchmark of a high quality or a high content, it doesn't matter, because audience is ultimately saying, I love this content, I want to go to the cinema hall and I want to see the content, whether critics are panning it or not. So that's a very important benchmark. And when the audience is the king, ultimately it boils down to a situation where all of us saying that what is the money it is generating, right? Because ultimately audience is going all the way to pay a particular price to see a content. When you look at art house and you look at quality content, there is nothing one has to get any demeaning about it. But the fact of the situation is that over last 100 odd years or 200 odd years, every festival, every community is celebrating those content, but you may not have to have the same benchmark. One need not have to have a benchmark that I have a great content which will go an award. It is as equally as important getting another film which is going on 100 crore box office. Nothing is more important and nothing less than that. It is we set up those benchmarks in our mind. That okay, why a movie making 100 crore business is good or bad, either way in compared to another. I mean, there are audiences who will feel that okay, the movie is making too commercial, probably it is lacking quality. I mean, this kind of theory goes into our industries also, right? So it is your own benchmark that why do you want to celebrate, and especially now coming from a streaming point of view, as I'm saying, that it just democratizes a lot. But finally, even for the streamers, there is an economics. When a streamer is spending an X amount of money, he needs to look how many more subscribers I am going to get. It is not only he has to get great acclaim, he has to get a subscriber who has to commit to pay an X amount of money per month. And that's why the streamer is going to invest the money for a content. So it ultimately boils down to that kind of a situation. I mean, I'm just saying from my point of view, I'm happy to have a different point of view on this discussion.
That's what we love. Vishnu, do you have another aspect to share?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, after 25 years and 150 films we've made, I think maybe about 40 of them would be art house films, classic art house films. Okay, and the experience over the years has been that the art house films have had in the past, at least in our own case also, not been very commercially successful. Okay, they've never made an obscene amount of money. In most cases, yes, we would have a lot of acclaim. We'd win a national award. We'd have some, festivals with Rituparna Ghosh's movies, or even, in the case of Mr. Ray, his movies, etc., and all that. And Bengal has been specially, gifted in that respect. I think what has changed the last 5 years is that, and one of the reasons that it didn't work is that from a theatrical perspective, those films were largely city films. Okay, they were not very rural films at the time. Broadcasting rights were not sold in a lot of cases because they were again niche, and broadcasting only had that much of a window to be able to funnel those movies. So they had to gravitate towards more universal films in a lot of ways. The second thing is some of those films were adult, were classified as in the case of Rituparna Ghosh as an example. And they would not get primetime screening. So all you were left with is partly some of theatrical and some of the grant money that you got from any of the awards that you won in some cases, or some film festivals that you showed it to. So the limited window of opportunity to monetize those films. And the last 5 years, and that's one of the reasons why as SVF we are in the OTT business, is Pather Panchali was another film we talked about. I mean, I think a lot of people would have heard about Pather Panchali maybe after Ray's life, and now through streaming in the first place. They might have heard about the film but not had access to the film in an easily accessible format, maybe at somewhere or the other. Even a CD, DVD, sourcing that, commercially shipping it globally might be a challenge in the first place. The change now is that art house film is very aligned to the kind of content that is a big audience in the streaming world. Okay. So now there is a situation where you have a good theatrical, decent theatrical exploitation of that film. At the same time, streaming platforms, especially in our case at least, I think there's a big audience of people who actually gravitate towards very, what is considered as art house or parallel cinema in a lot of ways. And there are directors like Srijit Mukherjee and Kaushik Ganguly, etc., in Bengal who are doing fantastic work around that genre. The other thing I would say is just quick comment before I, stop. I think India, we talked about Game of Thrones, etc. I think India probably doesn't need to aim to create a Game of Thrones. I think India needs to be uniquely India to be universal. Parasite is a film which is uniquely Korean in a lot of ways, in a flavor, that it doesn't smell like so I think uniquely we need to be what we are as people and what our stories are and communicate that. And I think from an emotions and from a stories point of view, I think that will have universal appeal. So it's just a matter of time, as I mentioned. So I think the middle of a perfect storm, I guess.
Fair enough. I have this very spicy question, and I'm kind of amused by this question, but I yet want to bring it to this panelist. And I think maybe Nikhil and Kranti can have a go at this one. The question is from Akshay Sharma, and he's given us his validation that he's enjoyed the session. So please be nice and hear his question, okay? He's saying actors are eating the budget of movies in India. What is a sustainable ratio of business models such that the content can be more successful and easily be peddled? So I see Vishnu has already shown a sense of relief, but thank God I'm not dealing with this question. I don't know. Does Kranti or Nikhil want to have a go at this?
I'll just give you my 2 bits. So India typically for decades now has been a very star-driven system. And in many cases, audiences are probably, and let me qualify this by saying the film industry, since Shibashish nicely broke it up for us in terms of film, television, and OTT. The film industry was largely driven by stars, and the consumer had loyalty to a star versus a maker or a genre. And a lot of them went into the theaters to watch that star. So you could have the best film and not a star, and you may have a not so great film with a star, and right enough, the one with the star will definitely collect and fetch a lot more. But I would say the last decade or so, definitely content-based, very rich quality content has really worked. Smaller stars, or typically, people whom you would not even imagine could pull in crowds, or take away, carry the show, including in the OTT world. So, have carried or been doing great work and being appreciated. I do think that today I feel the actor and the director, or the creator, both are in equal demand, or especially at least in the OTT world, have the same sort of I would say I think Viraf disagrees with me.
No, Kranti, I think you are dodging the question because he's saying, भाई रोकड़ा बताओ कितना देने का कितना नहीं देने का सस्टेन करने के लिए. तो आप धंधा चलाते हो तो आप बताइए कि 10% of your production budget should go to basically say writing or 20% should go to your cast and beyond.
I think
do you want to give him some sort of an idea?
No, it will vary from project to project. It will really depend on what content you're creating. Like, if you're creating a film which is low on story and high on star cast, then it will be that way. And if it is a film which is very high on story, like a very small star can also, like Newton didn't have, any big A-lister star, but it yet did fantastically well. So
let's take a context. Here is a show or a project which is very high on writing and story. It has no established stars like the A-listers or B-listers. It's fresh faces. What's the breakup you would want to tell Akshay? That, hey, I would put in this much on this and this much in.
So I wouldn't be able to give such specifics in terms of budget. Maybe Nikhil could, but I'll give you an example, like a recent show called Grahan on Hotstar. It really doesn't have any recognizable face. But fantastic performances and a great show. So, not to demean anybody who's on the show, but it doesn't have a typical A-listers at all. So I think, and by the way, I think it is a piece of content which can travel borders, and that is the kind of content which probably needs to be marketed overseas as much as in India. So I'll leave Nikhil to answer the percentages. I'm not. I don't think it's so scientific in terms of putting down percentages. So.
Yeah, it's subjective to project to project.
Yeah.
I think that's what Kranti is trying to say.
Yeah.
Nikhil, you want to give a stab to this gentleman? Akshay Sharma is very cute.
So at the end of it, as Subhashish said, that it's not the content but the audience is the king, and it's a reality we as filmmakers have to face it as early as possible and to understand that. About the star thing, I think it's pretty clear that way, is that if the star gives you the first 3 days of the major recovery of the film, no producer would mind paying it. It's also as transparent as it is. Star gives the first 3 days, and then it's from Monday, it's the film. If it's a good film plus a good star and the wind is with you, then it will do wonders. Otherwise, the trend would go down. So I think for me, I think it's pretty clear that way. But also the way the trends are changing, which are very optimistic. I think what happened with Hathiram's character in Patal Lok or Pratik Gandhi in Scam, these are very optimistic times, especially for us in OTT, that there can be exceptions. There would be these characters coming out from nowhere, and the show could get that popular. So that's happening in OTT. That is also happening in theatrical, but more in OTT, and I'm very looking forward for that optimism, that part. But with stars, I think so it's pretty clear. It's just a number game.
Okay. I before I go into another question, I'd like firstly to say thank you to all you fantastic panelists, Vishnu, Subhashish, Nikhil, Anala, Kranti, and Manisha ma'am. Of course, Dhanpreet ma'am had to leave us because she was indisposed. Before we go, I would like each one of you to take a minute to share the future of your vision, your dreams, your hopes for Indian content's future going global. And be as non-practical, as visual. Come on, what are the dreams about? Because you all are at the forefront of the business. You're marketing content, creating content. I want to start with you, Subhashish. Give me the broad stroke vision. Give me the passion. Give me the dreams. Give me the hopes.
Yeah, so I think I probably maybe a bit aggressively optimistic, but the way I see the train, I'll just give you one example. I came from a very hardcore FMCG background, and probably 18 years back when I entered this business, I never used to understand, because I came from a Godrej. I never used to understand that what is this business actually mean. Last 25 years, media and entertainment industry has grown every single year, double the country's GDP growth rate. We don't talk of this data many point of time. So when the country grows by 7%, media entertainment grows by 14%. When country grows by 5%, we grow by 10%, right? The storytellers of this country, I feel, give it another 3 to 5 years, this country's stories is going to be the next battleground of the US. And there is also a lot of arithmetic you have to understand. Now, we all respectfully have to understand that US probably is the first country who has created you look at the history of films, history of television, history of OTT, that market is getting saturated in some manner. If you look at 20 odd platforms, they're all cannibalizing the same market with Apple and HBO Max and Peacock and you name as Canal Plus, and everybody is cannibalizing the same market. If they need to grow, they need to grow the next subscriber. The next big subscriber is Europe is small in terms of number. It has to be either China or it has to be India. China didn't allow a single foreign player to play today. So the global players have no other option but to come to the Indian market and strive for Indian content, because they can't come only with the Hollywood content or the English content. So as we talk of 3 big players, global players with the Disney Plus, already Apple has set up India team, already HBO Max has set up India team, already Peacock is looking for India. So there are at least another 5 players who are looking at least anything between a 20 to 30,000 crore investment only in Indian content, in Indian setup. Even a 20%, 30% of goes in the storytelling and balance maybe the infrastructure, there is no doubt that the India will be the next battleground in the global content. What will happen? A lot of consolidation will happen. We can't have 40 players. We have now 40 OTT players in the country. Probably not 40 players will be striving and such. There will be consolidation, there will be merger, there will be buyout, several kind of stuff.
And you're seeing that in America as well.
It will happen here, has to happen. India is another big plus point, which even Vishnu will agree. We are like a mini Europe. We make content in 20 languages. And now we are saying language is not a barrier. So we are making Tamil also, Telugu also, Bengali also, Kannada also, Gujarati also. So each of the states is virtually becoming like a powerhouse of that language and going globally, where again the language is not a barrier. So probably I'm aggressively optimistic, but give it next 3 to 5 years, I think India will be the next big market in content storytelling, if not the revenue numbers, but in content storytelling in the global place.
All right, next 3 to 5 years. Vishnu, your prophecy for the future, your hopes, tell us something that doesn't make sense, that sounds irrational right now. But 5 years later, we look back and we say, Vishnu said this at the Cannes conversation.
No, I'm not gonna try be an oracle and predict this will happen at this time. But what I do see is a very strong upward trend. I don't see any way but up as far as India's local market is concerned, as far as Indian content's global market is concerned. And I don't see any reason for us to, and I mentioned this, I called it a perfect storm. I think in every aspect, COVID aside and some couple of years aberration aside, I think from a infrastructure point of view, from a creator's perspective, from a distribution problem solving perspective, from an investment perspective, like Shibhashi just mentioned, I think there is just about everything, and global companies coming in doing a lot of stuff here. This has never happened in the past, right? And internet as a medium takes your stories globally in an instant. So I think from that perspective, it's strongly upwards. The other thing I would say is just a very notional thing. I think in a lot of ways we've not even tapped into the Indian diaspora till now. I can take from our example. We've been doing Bengali content for 25 years. We never earned a lot of money from Bangladesh outside of. We used to mostly get pirated. Right now is last 2-3 years is when we started making good revenue from Bangladesh because the market has developed and OTT offered that opportunity. Or for that matter, Bangladeshi diaspora. We speak the same language, but we never monetize that language. So I think there's still a huge amount of pockets of growth even within the diaspora who've sort of forgotten about Indian content or have, in the next generations, let go of what it meant to be connected to their roots in a lot of ways. And I think that in itself is a huge audience, and that's not taking away from other people of other languages in the first place.
All right, Kranti, what's your hope for Indian content to meet the rest of the 6 billion that are there on this planet apart from us? With about 7 billion, remove about 1 billion of Indians? What's your stand for the future?
No, I actually so kind of laid out what my vision was right in my opening statement, but I would actually agree and say that the kind of investment happening in content creation, I think this year alone, this financial year, we expected to have 3,000 crores of original OTT content investments. So the kind of investments happening and the development of the creative community, and in the race to gain the Indian audiences, I think each platform will outdo itself in the kind of content they make, and it'll definitely travel overseas and abroad. Yes, I do feel a lot of work needs to be done, at least to create the Indian brand awareness and see how India also gains through all of this as a soft power. But yeah, I think definitely a golden period ahead in the next 3 to 5 years for sure. Indian content creators.
Manisha ma'am, before I go to Nikhil for his big future stab, what's your hope, vision?
So it's
Any red flags you want to give?
not
Any
about
more complaints you can also tell them. We'll be happy to
not
address.
so much about hope. I'm almost certain this is what we are committed to, that I hope that we can transform our, film city premises and create many more mini film city hubs across the country, not only in Maharashtra, as a nation, and which have state-of-the-art facility and technology and infrastructure. So we become the preferred hub of, investments and people coming, and we can attract production houses here and people from other states if it is Maharashtra. That is one. The second thing is, I also feel there would be a very, vibrant knowledge ecosystem of knowledge creation and IPR. I mean, that is one area not too many people understand or appreciate, but I think it would be, as more and more, you have the latest technologies and interface happening, then I think the protection of IPR and understanding of it and monetization of it, I think, and greater knowledge sharing, I think that is another area that we need to focus on. And third, I said, is a sustained pool of professional manpower, because you have the more you scale up, I think it will be required that you create very high quality institutions and delivery mechanisms through which this knowledge and professional skills are developed. So this would be, and I hopefully on all these three fronts, India would do its best and Maharashtra would do its best, is my hope and vision.
Yeah. Nikhil, thank you, Manisha ma'am. Nikhil, tell us your naive hopes, as naive as it may sound, but tell us.
Yeah, no, it will sound very naive, because considering the fact that we are going through tough times theatrical wise, also considering those years, assumingly that when theaters will open up, we all are, I think so, is as blind as it can get. I won't touch the commercial part because that's already been spoken, but from content point of view, one thing I'm very optimistic is because of no language barrier, the best of the stories out of all that content and thousands of content which is going to be created, the one which is going to be shine is as colloquial as could get. Those unique stories were not being made through because of the commercial setup and the star system. Those will be the one probably in the next 5 years, the films being sent, hopefully be sent to Oscars or being recognized, would be the most colloquial and most unique and as local. And those makers probably who wouldn't get a chance in the current scenario of the way we were going. So I'm hopeful in that front that those would be definitely created. And the rest, I think so it's going to be, because now it's going to be complex multiplication of too much of screen content definitely being created. Of course, there's going to be a lot of noise, to be very honest. But let's see, the best ones are more, I mean, they're more good apples than the bad apples. So yeah.
Okay, now comes my rapid fire closing question to each one of you, and you all have to rattle it out before we close it, okay? And you, Manisha ma'am, you can't give a politically correct answer to this one, because I'm going to start with Kranti. Kranti, you are in the spotlight right now. You are, say, sitting with a non-Indian at an airport, and that non-Indian says, hey, listen, tell me 3 pieces of Indian content that I should watch. What are the 3 pieces of Indian content you're going to recommend? Your Indian content recommendations to the non-Indian. Vishnu, Subhashish, Mikhil, you all have an advantage of thinking before Sandeep because poor thing is in the spotlight.
Definitely 3 Idiots. A really cute film which gives a lot of insight into the, intricacies of Indian society called Mandela. And
I wish, my shows
okay,
are
3
also
is
on
a
your
lot.
platform. You can recommend my show. Quick.
Yeah, okay, I can't currently come up with a third. Sorry.
All right, we'll come back to you for the
Yeah,
third.
you
Vishnu,
could, yeah.
your 3 recommendations.
Yeah, we've discussed some of these. I would definitely say Potter Pachali or the Appu series in general. Secondly, being something like maybe Tare Zameen Par, because a universal story about a human condition that applies globally. Third, of late recently, I would say, I can't think of the third one now. Recently,
everybody is struggling to think of the third one. Really, are we so devoid of?
We've not gone to cinemas in a while, no? So that's why we are a little, and we've been watching so much content now, so it's all getting merged into each other, maybe.
Come on, help us
let's
sell
say,
Indian content.
Let's say Chokher Bali. One more.
Chokher. All right. Subhashish, you've been really enjoying this section of the conversation. So come on, tell us your 3.
So I got an opportunity of preparing myself because of Kranti.
This better be an interesting list.
So yeah, I think films like, I think we can't choose one, but probably any of the race films, so any of the Satyajit race films which we have grown up with. Something like Bajrangi Bhaijaan, we love to say film like that. 3 Idiot, beautiful film. And so those are the films which will probably, I'm not talking content, I'm purely talking film. I'll probably mention them.
So what are the 3? 3 Idiots, Bajrangi Bhaijaan
and any of Satyajit Ray's film. You pick up any one of the...
Any of Satyajit Ray's work. Beautiful. That's also such an interesting mix. Mikhil, what are your 3?
Viraf, I'm very selfish. I usually recommend my films only. So I'm a filmmaker. So.
Then we have that in common. I would not ask anybody to watch anything else. I just tell them my shows and my movies.
So Viraf, the only thing common we have is tiny body of work. So that's why. So okay, films I think quite depends on the person also, but then films which has also depicts India and changed things quite well. I think Lagan, Dil Chahta and Rang De Basanti. These are little exciting films of our times. So maybe these 3 films, which broadly just covered,
Lagan, Dil Chahta and Rang De Basanti.
Rang De Basanti.
Amir Khan will be very happy to know all the 3 recommendations.
Yes.
Manisha ma'am, you've met this non-Indian traveler at the airport and is asking you 3 recommendations. What would your 3 recommendations be?
If it's a non-Indian, I mean, my first conversation would be if he hasn't seen Gandhi, then it is Gandhi for me, because it is the birth of a nation and I can go in the past or in the contemporary times with him.
I don't know if Gandhi qualifies for Indian content. Just putting it out there. It is an Indian man's story.
It's about Indian content, maybe not an Indian filmmaker, but you are asking about, so I would...
Fair enough, but we will not invalidate you. Fair enough, Gandhi. Then? Okay,
my second would be Article 15. I mean, Yeah, so there is people have a lot of curiosity about caste system in India and the social structure. So I think that would be another good conversation, a good point to start with. And the third, I mean, recently Kranti mentioned, I just happened to see an episode of Grahan yesterday, and it's about a police woman officer. So the protagonist, she's a civil servant. So I resonated very much with her. So I think from the gender perspective and from the governance political perspective, that would be a good point for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I found my third film, by the way, Vera.
Please. Chak De.
For I also found my third, although I gave another name. I think it would be Gangs of Wasseypur in a lot of ways for me personally.
Gangs
Okay.
of Wasseypur.
If I was
Right.
going to say the same.
Thappad was another movie I thought could be an interesting.
Okay, I'm so glad you started off very shyly giving out names of content, but now you're rattling out names by the end of it, which is feeling so good to us. And not that you all want to know, but I'll still tell you all my 3 recommendations if someone tells me they recommend. It would be 3 Idiots, Patal Lok, and I think, like Shibashi said, the Apu series of Ray, because that sort of gives a great, perspective of where we come from, one of our biggest films, and then what we're creating right now. So from Mandela to the Apu series to Tare Zameen Par to Thappad to Lagan to Satyajit Ray's work, Bajrangi Bhaijaan, 3 Idiots, Article 15, Gangs of Wasseypur, Chak De, Rang De Basanti. This is just beautiful stars in this cloud of Indian content that we've been discussing. We've had the privilege to discuss that. This just shows the diversity that we have. I wish each one of you success in taking that Indian content that much further into the globe. Thank you once again for your time on behalf of Vicky and the team at Cannes. Thank you for making this 1 hour really worthy. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I just say bye-bye and wish you all very, very good health, nothing else, to you and your loved ones and your families. Thank you once again. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Viraf, and thanks to Vicky. Great panel. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.